Taurus rising, I'm sure you've heard the hype and spin around Barbault's basket. This is what it looks like for a whole sign Taurus rising's chart. In this video, I want to break down all the components for you. I'm Sook Boy, you're awesome. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, we need to step back a little bit. This is mostly generational planets and a social planet being Jupiter. So it might not be about your identity or you as an individual, more so something that we move through collectively. So sure, this is an event, as in all the aspects perfect this pattern, this cradle in July, but it's coming from a chain of events, and it's more like an era or an epoch that we are moving through. And unless you've got personal planets or potentially luminaries around 4 degrees of these particular signs, Gemini, Aries, Aquarius and Leo, you may not feel it on an individual level, but it could be something you observe, and something you observe the collective again moving through. In fact, only in hindsight will we look back at this period and decipher the decisions that were made that actually caused pretty major pivots moving into the future. So shifting your perspective around this being an isolated event, and more so the unfolding of a chain of events, and this being somewhat of a moment of pivot, potentially a moment of crisis, where decisions are made. But again, you may not even realize the decisions you make now are kind of important. Astrology can't actually predict the future. I mean, some say it can, but from my perspective, it's more predicting the conditions in which events could occur and the setup, what's happened in the past and what are you moving through now that can somehow inform your decisions, again, moving forward. Now, a lot of astrologers with a potential personal interest may try to focus in on a particular event occurring. Now, that could happen, but again, it's more so an unfolding or an unraveling of what's already been going on. We're in the midst of a cycle, and there's a couple of periods I want to point to. If you think back to 2000, this is when a generation of people were birthed into the earth, let's say. And so now they're coming into maturity, they're in their mid-20s, and they have a particular worldview that is different to any one that preceded them. So nesting the 2000 period in context, also nesting 2007 and 2008, the global financial crisis, that was another pivotal moment where we saw some of the same energies occurring. And again, decisions were made then that actually alter the future, and now we're living in that future. But for this video, I actually want to start the clock at around the Great Conjunction. That's when we saw Saturn and Jupiter form a conjunction, and they just formed conjunctions with Pluto. Pluto is obviously activated for this Barbault basket or this cradle-shaped pattern. So I'm starting the clock there, and I want you to think about what changed in your life since then, what events started around that period, what kind of skills and worldviews and lifestyles and dreams you have of the future. What occurred then and what's now playing out now, and what's tense about it? What's something that you need to make a decision on? Is your life working? Do you need to step back, or do you need to push harder in this phase of your life? And this is what this basket is ultimately asking you. Now, collectively, we're moving into a phase of techno-feudalism, let's say, the control over distribution and capital resources, and basically what's taking up all of our attention. We now live in an attention economy. And, it's non-negotiable at this point to have some kind of participation within the internet. It's like so much of our life is dictated by our presence online. Now, some of us have chosen to become influencers, and therefore we are a slave to some kind of algorithm or how well we can go on social media so we can bring in revenue from that area. But before this period, and many of us are still in the paradigm of 9-to-5 work, working for someone else. And so you're a slave to their personal interests, let's say. So whether we like it or not, we're moving from that old traditional established order of potentially a 9-to-5 job into this more technological based economy and cultural zeitgeist. And this is ultimately what's playing out for the Barbault basket, our relationship with technology and how that infiltrates our life and who has control over these platforms. Now, if we do start the clock at around the start of the pandemic, let's say, we're halfway through a synodic cycle where Jupiter began its cycle, let's say, when it was making conjunctions with Saturn and Pluto, kinda. So we're 6 years into this. And so over the next 6 years, it's going to complete that synodic cycle. It's going to wind back up at the late stages of Capricorn and early Aquarius. And in that time, I imagine we will have integrated digital ID and digital currency. So there could be some rapid accelerated events that occur in July or over the next 6 years, let's say, where that becomes a real concrete reality for everyone. But if we hyper-focus and get a little bit surgical on your particular rising sign, in this case it's Taurus rising, I'll be doing a whole series on everyone. Yes, this is a collective error, but you can still learn to navigate it specifically within your chart. And this is what this video is all about. Let's break it down. Now for Taurus rising, there's some particular themes about how you might be feeling. More introspective than usual, looking back through your life, your family history, your childhood, and your beliefs, and how you've shaped different beliefs in the last 6 years. What's different about the version of yourself back then compared to the version of yourself right now? You could be caught between a feeling of safety and deep transition. After all, Uranus in that time has actually moved through your first house of Taurus, which can really be very disruptive, and some sudden events and changes about your relationship to your identity. The idea of really wanting to be reliable and predictable and stable, all while recognizing that real security may require you letting go of old ways of seeing things, your worldview, and basically your lifestyle and the way you put together your life. It's all in flux, it's all changing. And change is the only constant. That's the only thing you're going to be certain about in this life. For Taurus rising in particular, the tension may be circulated around your duty to your visible self, your more public self, and what you contribute to society, your ambitions, so on and so forth. And also what it means to truly be happy and in your own sovereignty, spiritual sovereignty, and the responsibilities and due diligence you have to your private world just as much as your public world. And that's what the opposition between Pluto and Jupiter is really all about. It's in an angular house of your 4th house of the private world and your 10th house of your public self. And this is what we call the parental axis. So basically your family could be going through similar circumstances or a very power struggle when it comes to, their lives and what stage of life they're really in. So immediately the tension could be around themes of career, your public life, your public reputation, your personal ambitions, and your relationship with authority figures. This could include your relationship with your parents and the relationship you have with hierarchy, with power structures, generally speaking. And this tension is within your private world as well. So where do you belong? What feels safe? What feels like home? What kind of life provides you with genuine security? Now, I've already covered Jupiter in Leo, and this is basically an expansion of attention and potentially confidence and enthusiasm and optimism about exploring and discovering more things about your private world. And this can include your heritage, your roots, your ancestry, and basically how you feel comfortable and a sense of belonging when you're by yourself or around your intimate, close circle of family or friends, whatever your living situation happens to be. You might be pulled into a more visible role and maybe your career path and your life direction is changing, all whilst at the same time when you're on your own, you're really deeply questioning your beliefs and becoming a lot more reflective about who you truly are. Because Jupiter is in Leo in this 4th house and there's some tension there, it's really worth asking yourself, how do you express yourself? What is your self-expression as opposed to your social expression? What actually pleasures you? What actually fills your cup? What are you confident about in your private world that you're not confident about broadcasting to the collective? Do you feel like you won't be accepted? Do you feel like you have to show off or garner more attention? Are you lacking recognition or validation from the collective, and hence there is some psychological resistance to actually showing people who you really are? Now, the opposition between Pluto and Jupiter is tense, and that's almost like the backbone or the spine of this cradle-shaped pattern, the Barbault basket. But both Pluto and Jupiter have relieving harmonious trines and sextiles to other areas of the chart. And so Uranus is in your 2nd house of Gemini, and it's forming a sextile to Jupiter and a trine up to Pluto. What does that mean? This 2nd house is all about diversifying your income, your access to resources, sometimes your self-confidence, what you value and what you are repulsed by, what you want to bring closer into your life and what you want to push further away from your life. Money, income, material possessions, resources, investments you have access to. And there may be some realizations all of a sudden around less is more, potentially. Maybe your attachment to material possessions will be questioned in this time, and you don't need the luxury item. You don't need to spend that much on this possession. Maybe, again, less is more, or a pivot away from your old belief system about what it means to be materially secure. Your relationship with money could be changing. You could be Thinking about multiple income streams rather than just going for one salary. Maybe you have some passive income and some contract work, freelancing, for example. Maybe you're integrating more technology into the way you create your wealth. And therefore, there could be a huge change to your personal values, what you find personally value, and how you want to operate in this new era or epoch. For some of you, you may actually realize in this time that it's not about material wealth, that you are your greatest asset. You are the best resource that you have access to. And this new belief system, this new relationship with money could potentially alter your financial habits, your resource management, and your long-term stability. Building a more flexible version of what you perceive success is, approaching it differently, not comparing yourself to others. There may be an inner revolution about what successful actually means to you. Now, Uranus kind of likes being in Gemini. It's very clever and it likes to diversify things and look at things from completely different perspectives. So you could actually shift the way you look at your home or shift the way you look at your relationship with your parents or your living situation. And you could also completely redefine what your career should be moving into the future. And again, think about 6 years ago. Where were you there and where are you now? And what tension is being generated and what really needs to be addressed? What have you become too rigid about? And are you at the risk of breaking? Now, this Uranus in Gemini is asking you to bend and not break. Not be too stubborn, not be too arrogant about the established way of things and actually integrating new technologies potentially, or just different ways of going about generating money and supporting the house, your home, your property, even reinvesting or refinancing your home potentially to make things a little bit easier. Or again, looking at the career, what can I pivot? What can I change? What can I update around my relationship, again, with technology, my tribe, and my vision of the future? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And this Uranus is helping you do that in a financial way. How do you provide the resources you need to get ahead? Finally, Neptune and Saturn are in your 12th house, also forming aspects to Pluto and Jupiter. Now, this is redefining or giving you the opportunity to expand or give yourself some greater knowledge potentially around your spiritual self or your ultimate meaning, the narrative you tell yourself about, outside the structure of atheism. Have you been a materialistic atheist most of your life? Are you now allowing some more spiritual guidance, mentorship, or a different psychological and spiritual framework to actually inform the meaning you have of your life and what life generally is, collectively and individually speaking? This could mean deepening your faith. This could mean taking the initiative and learning more about all sorts of different cultures and all sorts of different worldviews and philosophies that actually broaden your horizon when it comes to the big question of what is the meaning of life and what is consciousness. Now, many of you will probably never find the answer to that question, but you will experience yourself moving through the process of learning more about yourself and more about the world you live in. And in that regard, you can find some closure. The more you know, the less you know. But starting that investigation about what do you truly believe? What gives your life meaning in particular? Can you trust yourself? Can you trust this life? Are you going to be more predictable? Are you going to be more consistent with yourself? Or do you thrive off excitement and stimulation and spontaneity? This event is part of a much larger multi-year transformation that you're going through. And it's everything about who you are when no one's watching and what you choose to broadcast in a more visible way. Now, as a thank you for watching this really long video, it was really hard to put everything in the one video, very complicated aspect pattern here. But if you did watch it to the end, as a thank you, please send me a DM. I'll send you a coupon code for 30 Australian dollars off my natal and birth chart readings. We can go a lot deeper if you want to book a private reading. Just saying. Only love, positive vibes always. Hope that helps. Okay, bye.